The financial trauma that no one talks about. First responders in survival mode. Welcome back to Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines, and I'm Krista Fee, and this is a Rise Up Responders episode. Today we're going to walk into a conversation that most responder wellness programs still avoid entirely because it's uncomfortable to talk about. It means they have to admit it exists, and let's be honest, leadership doesn't want to own up to this one. It doesn't make the system and the organizations look very good. We're going to talk about money, not budgeting tips, not retirement plans, real, cumulative, chronic financial trauma. The financial trauma that quietly lives underneath the badge. The strain that far too many responders live with. Silently, chronically, and often with a lot of shame attached to it. This episode might hit close to home, and that's exactly why we're doing it. Let's delve into the hidden costs of service. The general public thinks about first responders as heroes, and you are. But what they rarely see is the math behind the mission that doesn't match up with the status. The base salary that barely covers the cost of living. The mandatory overtime that feels less like extra money and more like forced survival. The second and even third jobs that many responders quietly work just to stay afloat. The missed holidays, missed weekends, missed time with family, all traded for a little more income to patch the gaps. And then there's the looming fear most responders don't say out loud. What happens when my body gives out? When I can't keep working? When the retirement system doesn't stretch far enough? This is what we call financial trauma, a combination of financial instability layered on top of chronic operational trauma. The nervous system feedback loop. Financial trauma activates the exact same biological pathways as combat trauma, moral injury, and on-scene trauma. Hypervigilance kicks in as bills pile up. The amygdala fires every time a major expense shows up. The sympathetic nervous system, it stays stuck in overdrive. Sleep, digestion, mood, and energy all take the hits. Your nervous system does not distinguish between financial threat and physical ones. So to your brain, they both activate the exact same survival response. This is one of the reasons so many responders live in chronic activation, even on their days off. The uniform may come off, but the financial battle never really pauses. So let's look at impulse control, adrenaline, and money behavior patterns. Let's talk about something that very few wellness programs ever address: how operational conditioning affects financial decision-making. When you live shift to shift for years, your brain adapts to this short-term urgency. Long-term planning feels irrelevant when the present feels like a crisis. Adrenaline addiction fuels risk-taking investments, side hustles, and quick fixes. Impulse spending becomes a reward loop and a way to decompress after emotional suppression. This is a negative coping strategy. High risk tolerance from life and death decision-making bleeds into your financial choices. Civilians might call this reckless, but it feels totally normal in responder culture. Again, and I'll say this often, you are not broken. You're not bad with money. Well, you likely do have some habits to change, and we can work with that. But your nervous system is simply adapted to survive inside this world of constant threat. So here's the problem. That same wiring can quietly destroy your financial stability long after your operational career ends. The multiple jobs trap. Let's call this out directly. Multiple jobs feels like control. Multiple jobs feels like the responsible thing to do. Multiple jobs offers temporary relief, but it's also a long-term trap because more jobs mean less sleep, less emotional recovery, less family time, less relational repair, more dysregulation, higher risk of burnout, higher risk of depression and anxiety. We see responders chasing financial stability with work volume instead of financial healing. And many of them are collapsing physically, emotionally, and relationally long before they ever stabilize economically. Financial trauma is operational trauma. This is why inside RiseUp Responders, we address financial health as part of total mental health and life mastery. Because when financial stress goes unaddressed, the anxiety becomes chronic. Marriages crack under the invisible financial conflict. Your physical health deteriorates under the overwhelming amount of stress hormones. Sleep disorders worsen. Retirement becomes terrifying instead of empowering. If we're serious about trauma-informed care for responders, then we can't keep leaving financial survival mode out of the equation. Financial trauma is real. Financial dysregulation is nervous system dysregulation. Financial healing is part of operational recovery. If this episode hits close to home, you are not alone, and you don't have to keep surviving this battle in silence. At RiseUp Responders, we're building trauma-informed responder wellness that actually accounts for all the weight you're carrying, not just the calls that you work. Your financial strain is real. Your survival patterns make sense. And yes, they can be addressed. They can be changed. They can be healed. And if you're ready to explore how we can support your wellness, including the financial trauma piece that most programs ignore, I invite you to schedule a private call with me. Let's talk about where you're at and what it would look like to reclaim stability in every part of your life. You can schedule that call using the link above or below, depending on where you get your favorite podcasts. This is Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines, where we say the things that need to be said, where we serve those who serve, and where we remind every responder listening that you can rise up and you don't have to do it alone.